Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Casually Hardcore Podcast, episode 61A. We did a live reaction to the PS5. Not technically reveal, but it was like I definitely was hoping for a reveal. And I know the internet's been kind of on fire, but there's some really, really awesome tech specs that we got. And the implication on gaming for the next generation consoles truly is exciting. And so we're going to talk about that here today. Chris, who did we have on last? What do we got going up? And how are we paying for this?
So last week you had a one-on-one with Tate there, and so that's awesome. And we had a brief little conversation this week with Boom that's going to live over on Twitch. Maybe it'll end up in the highlights for those of you that haven't followed us over on Casually Hardcore Podcast highlights. That's where some of this stuff goes and lives. And this week we're talking to you, Avalon, and this week is brought to you by Shadow PC. Shadow PC just lowered all their prices. I think one of the issues has been that people still feel it's a little bit on the pricey end. Prices came way down and then just got expanded to all 50 states. So for those of you that wanted to try it and it wasn't in your area, definitely consider giving it a shot. It's a little more powerful than the other solutions out there because it'll let you throw mods and stuff. It really is a full-blown PC that just lives in the cloud instead of at your desk. So link down below if you want to try it.
Please do. And obviously, Avalon Star Brian, great name, just an awesome name. I'm a fan of his name. But we've had him on before, Destiny player, Final Fantasy XIV player, former Twitch designer, full-time streamer, and other content creator, and just really all-around awesome guy. We got to hang out with him out at the media tour last year. We got to have him on the podcast. It literally was probably like one of the best after show podcasts we've ever had. It ended up just being just like the most real and interesting thing, because if you got questions, you got to check out his stream. This guy knows what he's talking about. He loves games, and he's just got one of the best communities that I think exists on Twitch. And that's just my biased opinion in that regards. Brian, for people who haven't heard of you and your content, do a quick introduction, because it has been a couple months since we've actually had you on the podcast, and the communities have just continued to grow and change and things like that.
I brand myself now as a passion-based streamer, which is pretty much a buzzword for I play what I want. Mostly that's Destiny 2, 14. But I think the biggest draw for my stream is the fact that, we don't try and create a persona or try to create something that's not there. It's like what you see is what you get. I'm bad at creating personas, so I like having fun with games, talking about stuff going on in the world, and I just love to talk. So I mean that probably contributes to why that playlist was so good, because I could just talk about anything. But yeah, it's just we have a very laid back community, and I love them a lot, my Crusaders. So yeah, I mean, we're open.
Best camera of every streamer ever.
Yeah, you got the setup.
I have improved the lighting setup since we
even
last,
fancier.
Well, I love the colors. I love how it all works together. And honestly, that's if anybody ever asks, if you ever see like things improve here, it's literally I'm just trying to hit the Avalon Star bar. Like it's great. I love goals. I love having people who are like I love watching content creators, and that's why I've always just like it's interesting. Somebody sent me a link, and I was like, I've never heard of this content creator before, and how have I not heard about him? I haven't even there's so much of the algorithm that isn't recommending things. And so guys, the best advice I can give, if you have somebody you like, send them to me, because I'm always interested in seeing that. But send them to other people. The algorithm really isn't making recommendations. I've discovered the last 10 content creators all through somebody saying hey, have you seen what this guy's doing? And I go, no, because it's not showing up on my homepage. If it doesn't show up on my homepage, that's a whole thing in and of itself. Beyond that though, I want to talk about the PS5 and the Xbox with you. I want to get your thoughts on Final Fantasy XIV, Destiny. So we'll dive into that here in this show. But before that, what is going on with the state of Twitch? Before in the pre-show, we kind of touched on this, but obviously people are working from home. People are streaming a lot more. What's the general mood on your stream? What's the general mood and with streaming itself? How are you affected by working from home, being somebody who streams?
I mean, as we were talking about in the precast, I've been working from home for 14 years, so in 2 industries. So this just feels like more of the same. It's just you just have a different audience, and more of a mandate to bring a little bit more than you usually would, because there are a lot of people that are out of their element. So being mindful of that helps me sort of kind of silo this away as like, yeah, this is a special one, kind of these next few weeks are going to be really sort of essential to being able to connect with people and make sure that they're comfortable, because that's what my cast is all about, is making people feel comfortable in the space, comfortably talking with what they want to talk about. And so like not much has really changed, although we just we're kind of playing around. If anything, more has been happening on our Discord than on the stream, because with a lot of people really, obviously with coronavirus being the 800-pound gorilla here, it's like just being able to keep a sense of what our community stands for amongst all the panic. And so like we created a new channel just for world events, and so people can share there, and people have been sharing information there. But we wanted to keep the community the same. We didn't want everybody to start panicking, because one person can just set everybody else off. So it's like, if anything, we've had to be more vigilant to make sure that the standards of quality that we set for the community have stayed the same, because people depend on that. It's not just because we're trying to I haven't used my band hammer in a while and I just need to throw it at a few people. It's the fact that like people depend on this community being the way it is, and we have a responsibility to keep to that,
from a sense of normalcy, just to help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if the most important thing we can have at this point, one of the most important things, especially if you're working from home, is that sense of normalcy, that you're just carrying out your day just in a different location. And I mean, we could get into this whole conversation about remote working in general. It's just like, you're just doing the same thing you always do from a different location, maybe a more comfortable location than you're used to. And this will have really wide-ranging impact in the future. This could change the sort of paradigm around and the views around remote work in general. So like being able to be on the front lines of that and have this opportunity to sort of provide that service, whereas you're now providing the service for somebody having to eat lunch from their desk, rather than having to be the server that serves them lunch from a restaurant that you would visit after work. It's like we're having to kind of hunker down and put out that extra time and energy to make sure, because our job is making sure that our audiences are happy and the content and things like that. So not much has changed on the stream, except just a lot more people, a lot more talk, a lot more vigilance around community standards and stuff.
I think it's important. Like I shared last night on Twitter, like I had my first like major anxiety attack since my son was born, so well over 18 months, and it just came on. What's helpful to know now, like compared to the first one that I ever had, is like I'm not dying. And for me, kind of leaning into the community, leaning into Twitter, leaning into streams, just being able to sit down and just like, okay, I can't play a game right now, but I can just know that I'm not dying, and I can just talk with somebody. I can just chat on Twitter, on Twitch. It was really calming. It was just like, I'm just, my brain's being silly. It's telling my body something that's not true. I'm just going to relax, and then I'm just going to go to bed. I'm not going to sit here and make a big deal out of it. So there's, obviously, like I didn't understand anxiety until I had my first real like anxiety attack here, like as an adult, and I was like, what's happening? But I can tell you, I can relate more to my dad now than ever before in my life. My dad's always kind of suffered from social anxiety. Like he would have anxiety attacks in situations and things like that. So for me, one-on-one, I was like, I can relate more to my dad now, but also in a way, I can also relate to the anxiety that's out there. And that's why I wanted to bring you on. We also had you scheduled. So this was just a point of just like, just kind of how it worked out. But it's the importance of trying to maintain that sense of normalcy, but also that sense of the importance of the stream, the importance of creating a video, because everybody's lives has been kind of turned upside down. Chris, do you have any thoughts or any like thing you'd like to share in that regards?
I think times like this, they bring out a lot of where our like true values lie. I mean, somewhat it's a different lens, like you might say something you didn't mean to say when you drink, and that's based on a thought that's real. That thought may not be like long lasting. That may have just been a thought that popped into your head, but you shared it because that lack of inhibition. But this is where that kind of protective nature goes in. And people hoarding are doing it because they believe they're protecting their family, but they're doing it at the cost of others, and they're just showing that they care about their family more than others. And that's not necessarily a bad quality. I think where you note more of a difference is like when you see companies telling their employees that they can't take off without losing their jobs and things like that, especially companies that are solvent enough to be able to cover this. They've got the money. We're not talking about a small business where they're saying, hey, if I let these people go home and I pay them, they won't have a job to come back to in June because we will run out of money. I'm talking about big Fortune 500 companies there are some here in the DFW Metroplex that I have friends that work for, that employees with symptoms are being told, go to the hospital and get a test. If you have a test, we'll give you off. Well, Dallas doesn't have that many tests. And so they're going to the hospital and they're being told, hey, you're in an age demographic and your health doesn't justify using one of our limited number of tests because you're not a high risk group. We recommend you go home. You probably do have it and you keep to yourself. Treat it like a normal flu, fluids, rest, and don't go near other people. And they go back to their employer and they repeat that and they go, well, you didn't get a test, so you need to work or you need to quit. And you don't have the sick leave to take off 2 weeks because many jobs don't provide that. You're welcome to use up any PTO you feel is necessary. And that really tells me where that company's values are. So I think this is more just a moment of frustration for me than anything else. In my own self, I stay home a lot and it still does feel weird to wake up and be like, you can't go anywhere today.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit trapped to wake up and realize I'm going to be in the confines of my own home.
Hawaii is a beautiful place to visit, but once you told me like the only way to leave is on a plane, I was like, I'm ready to get off this island. Like, it's just like, I'm a Texas guy. Like, it's, for the most part, I could drive in any direction for a very long time.
Absolutely.
It's like, all right, that's great. But then all of a sudden, like, yeah, I drove north, south, east, and west, and all around me was ocean. And I could do it within an hour. And I was like, I all of a sudden had island fever in that regard. So there's that's why I would say there's such a huge value that I put in. And I'm wondering if at the end of this event, if we all look at like Twitch and Mixer and YouTube and content creation in a whole like different light. I don't know. I'm not going to say that, in a year we're all going to be like, wow, like look how this just changed streaming culture just by this one event. But it does feel like, for me, I'm definitely leaning into that way more than I have in the past. I'm doing a lot more lurking, but it is a nice sense of distraction in that regards. I want to shift focus now, because no matter what, that's on our mind. It's like it's I would feel insincere not talking about it. But let's talk about Xbox. Let's talk about PlayStation 5 next gen. We got hardware specs, and outside of the trolls and like somebody was like, everybody seems to have labels. I've seen people calling out Sony ponies apparently and Xbox Xbots, and it's like, I don't care. Like, I'm excited about both systems. Technologically, 4.8 gigabytes a second IO read, 5.5 gigabytes a second IO read for PlayStation 5, coming up from megabytes a second. It's not like, oh, we got an additional gigabyte a second. It's like that's a massive leap in disk IO read that can completely change, in my mind, paradigm.
And I don't think we're going to be seeing the true effects of this until like 3 to 4 years down, like once we're mid-generation, because I actually see this generation lasting for longer than the last one, honestly. And like the PS4, Xbox One generation was pretty damn long.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the technological specs that were, not even the specs, the nuances that were coming out about how this technology works with each other is just what's amazing. Like opening your eyes to like, oh, no more loading tunnels, or hey, you only load what you see, and it's then the hard drive's just that fast to be able to load extremely detailed textures in your frame of view. And it's just the concept of what people could do with that is amazing. I mean, even just playing like with backwards compatibility baked into the chip on PS5, like just throw in FF14 on there is going to be like, oh man, the loading times are not going to be like instantaneous because it's not optimized for it, but it's still gonna be a lot better than what it is now with me and my standard PlayStation 4 Pro. that's my, like, I go upstairs to play 14 just on a controller and not really talk, and because I don't have a keyboard, and it's still like, oh, I gotta wait, like, I have an SSD on this machine, I gotta wait 3 minutes to load into my FC area. But yeah, just like little things like that. It's just gonna be, I think people will argue with the specs until you see them get the console in their hands, like, wow, this is really damn fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll kind of get to the point where developers are going to start having fun with the technology, which is why I thought it was really important, at least in the PlayStation presentation yesterday, that they were saying how they wanted to keep the developer experience the same. They wanted to shorten the spin up time from new console to being able to make something, to put graphics in it, from what was it for the PS4? I think it was like 3 to 6 months, down to less than a month.
Yeah,
like that gives you more time to just have fun with it, because you're not having to you're not reading the manual for like half your development time, which is great. I think that the hardware manufacturers are taking a lot of inspiration from where like open source software has gone. You have all those things permeating through, and it's just this just the way that it feels right for the way that software is being developed these days, that things are not, what was it that was said, it's not revolutional, it's evolutional, but it can still feel like a revolution, even if it's just an evolutionary step for the developers themselves.
Yeah,
it can feel revolutionary to us, which it will when we start seeing these games come out, I think.
I mean, Xbox has largely thrown out the word generation. At this point,
yeah.
They are saying everything from Xbox One forward is in a family. And yes, like phones or like PC hardware, when you look at min spec for a game, there are going to be aspects of that family that age out, but they're not going to have these hard lines in the sand like historic console generations have. PlayStation, as of designing the PlayStation 5, we don't know if they still feel this way internally, but their outward marketing is, we still believe in generations, and this is still going to be a hard mark between the PS4 and the PS5. It doesn't mean moving forward they're not phasing that out, or that they won't make PS6 a hard line. We don't know that. But even in that process, even in that presentation yesterday, you heard him say things like, historically they would have designed with the developers in mind and then kind of pushed it out to them, and then this time they went out and actively sought feedback from developers. Now, part of that shift is that more than ever before, these companies that own consoles own their own developers, so they're like, oh wow, we're really listening. Yeah, they're under your umbrella, like, of course you're listening.
Is this a good idea? Yes, boss. It's a great idea.
You're all
boss.
in the same stock price. But they, he talked about a compression format that wasn't decided on by the console development team. It was decided on by the game development teams, and they adopted it, and then they were excited about the results. So that kind of back and forth, that two-way street where you talk about it being more iterative, more evolutionary, instead of waiting for that next big chipset. I think that's an exciting thing to think, okay, we could just get 10% better suddenly. Like when you look at Teslas, the idea that they can update the firmware on my car, I don't have to go buy a new one. They can just say, hey, we found a new way to make it more fuel efficient. Like imagine if our consoles are just like, hey, we just got more frames, guys. Don't do anything. Just next time you connect to the internet, it's just going to do it for you. You're welcome.
And it really shows the, as part of my argument with like, a lot of devices these days that aren't consoles are very it's software driven. The software is driving the hardware rather than the hardware driving the software. Because it used to be that, hey, we have all these specs thrown out there, nobody takes advantage of it until the next generation is about to come out.
Yeah, I mean, Naughty Dog Naughty Dog is always like really like push the limit, and then you're like, that was possible on a PS3.
Exactly.
It's like...
and then oh hey, but the PS4 is coming. And like, where's the PS4 port of this? And so, by having it be software driven, you speed up these great games coming out, because you're not having to have them try and try to solve the puzzle of all this hardware that's been thrown at them.
Well, I think that's also when we look at the architecture being more kind of driven PC architecture as well.
Yeah.
There's less like, hey, we have to really rethink how this is all done. But the rethinking comes in that IO. We were talking in the pre-show, like when you think of RAM, like the reason you put things into RAM is because it's the speed of access. And so every time you'd have to go to the hard drive, that was virtualized RAM. It's slower in that regards. And my air just kicked on. I'm gonna let you guys talk about the speed. I'm gonna turn off my air real quick.
Okay.
It's hard to get excited about the tech specs if you're not somebody that follows this. We see things like RAM and teraflops and all these numbers being thrown around, but
Mhm.
it's a lot like somebody who doesn't change their own oil or ever work on their own car getting excited about horsepower. Like really understanding what these numbers mean outside of a bigger number is better or that a newer model is better.
Yeah.
I think what I'm struggling with on all this is that it feels like from what they've explained that they've made some major advancements, but what we haven't seen a lot of is, okay, can you show me an actual game loading, even if it's a mock-up, even if it's a simulation? Can you show me Destiny, how it should load on this hardware and how it should load on this hardware, even if it's faked? Like, just show me, hey, we've done the math on this and your load screens into the tower are going to cut from an average of 35 seconds to an average of 2. It's like,
I think didn't they have that though? Wasn't there a leaked presentation
Xbox
or
has
something
been
where
better
they...
about it.
Oh,
PlayStation
I mean, yeah,
hasn't
Xbox has
done
been better.
crap.
PlayStation has kept everything close to the vest, but I think there was some like tech talk like a year ago, maybe,
I
about
missed
them
it then.
showing off Spider-Man.
They showed Spider-Man
loading.
as he was
Yeah.
like, so what they did was, as a part of the presentation, I thought that the problem is that because they changed how the game was, like it's hard to register because you're like, okay, so they said, here's Spider-Man swinging through the city and he's going his Spider-Man speed and you don't see loading. It's all happening. And then he's like, what if we made Spider-Man 10 times faster? And then it's like you would see that, okay, it's got to load this thing. And he's like, now here
Right.
it is on
Yes, I do remember
PS5.
that now.
And it's like they can go super fast and it's just doing all the city stuff and more. So it was really impressive. Like, okay, but for the average gamer, it's like, well, like, yes, but Spider-Man isn't swinging through the city at 100 times speed. What does this mean for games? The first thing that comes to mind was The Flash. Like, imagine being the actual, like a video game based off of The Flash, because it's like the joke
You're literally
is
going through the city that fast and it can load all the textures that fast. Yeah,
it's like, well, let's just do it. Let's see what I don't know if it makes a good game play experience, but I was just like, how insane would that be from a fast travel perspective? Say, well, instead of fading to black, let's just zip you over there, and then just load it in real time and go nuts. I think the real concern I have is that devs only look at this because of the fact that, like, let's say a third party. I think when you look at Sony first party, like building something for that architecture, somebody like Naughty Dog could really say, like, what is this? How's this going to mean for our game design? Maybe we don't need a building there. We don't need a hallway here. We can really kind of play around with this and do something that has never been done before in games. Like, we're going to do all these characters and there's some water and, like when you think of all the hard things that sometimes you have to do programmatically, it's like, hey, we're going to do it and we can do it now, or we couldn't before. But my concern from third party, take Destiny, for example, is that, well, it's on all systems. Okay, here's how. Just make it load faster. Just make the level load faster, as opposed to, like, what does this really mean for the core design of any specific game? And that's where it'll be interesting to see if they make exclusives that are really driven on, can literally only run on PlayStation because you need that 5.5. If you anything less, this would not work. Otherwise, like, you look at 5.5 and 4.8, like, okay, I don't know if that's going to translate into any kind of game design specifically, but at the end of the day, on the Xbox side, maybe their VRAM and how they're doing their architecture with the memory bandwidth itself offsets the need for that, for that IO. So there's like at the end of the day, I'm like, there's two different systems here. Like, I'm planning on getting both. Honestly, it's about games and price at this point. Anybody can sit here and think about,
Yeah, it's always been that way, I think. And I mean, if we talk about, like, sort of the layman or average gamer, it's a catch-22 because, Sony did say something finally about their stuff, but people were like, well, that wasn't much. But they've been waiting for Sony to say something for a really long time. Maybe Sony, like, if that wasn't pushed as, maybe if GDC actually happened.
Yeah.
And that presentation was just for the GDC audience. We would have heard the specs come out, but not had 200,000 people watching this dude talk. Probably 90% of them being okay.
Well, what were the numbers, Chris? Because you said on the road to PS4 there was what, like 50 or 100,000.
It's like 150,000 views, and we were looking at 660,000 concurrent. So I don't know what the total views were on the road to PS5, but as somebody who has had streams where we have people come and go, I can tell you that if the concurrent is always smaller than the views, because that doesn't account for everybody who has already left before that concurrent number. So it's probably, it could be as high as 10 times as many people saw this. And so to say, oh, a few of those didn't like it, yeah, otherwise that first video should have took off. Like, if there were that many people, I doubt there's even 660,000 devs that need to watch this stuff.
the entire industry.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, the entire industry. Pause.
This is not their instruction booklet. They're going to be taught. They're going to have their reps at PlayStation to be able to do this stuff anyway. If anything, yeah, it was sort of a marketing event, but it's like how
they didn't know that. They thought they were talking to developers, and Microsoft said, even when we talk to developers, we're talking to gamers. And so Microsoft has just done a better job of messaging.
It just feels like the old hype train. I liked how refreshing that PlayStation bit was, because there's no, I guess I'm just jaded and tired of how like the PR departments are sort of, it's PR driven.
Yeah,
it is.
You know,
100%.
Product development and design, and I guess I'm just railing against that, because great example was, you know, just what's been happening with Destiny lately. And I love the game, I love it so much, but the way that they released the Fourth Horseman, it's like the new exotic shotgun that came out. There was a bug in one of the quest steps, but so people thought it was time gated, but it wasn't. It was just a bug, which they fixed. But it doesn't help that you got all these emails and you got that gigantic, you know, that great ornament staring you at the face. It's like the PR team is doing their own thing, and the developers are like, wait a minute, like there's no element of surprise anymore because they have to tell us everything beforehand. And it's like I don't know, I still, I guess I hold on to like my blind playthroughs and everything. Like I don't know anything about Animal Crossing. I'm playing it tonight with my wife, and I'm not letting anybody tell me anything about it. I haven't watched anything about it because like I want to savor those experiences, right? So I don't know. I've just been really like the addiction to this hype, this usual hype machine is just, maybe this is just me being old. I just feeling old.
I love it. I think that's something so raw and so true, because Chris and I've had these conversations, and I've said, like, I have a massive concern with hype, but I also am a part of the problem, right? Because I get excited about a game and I go and talk about it, and that in and of itself is hyping it up. Even if, like in the videos, like in our videos, we really try to maintain that, guys, just wait, like, just, you know, we're excited, but be cool, like, just chill, because we don't know if it's going to be good or bad. We just know that we like what we're hearing over here. We like it enough that we're going to go sit down and film and take time out of our day when we could be playing a game or working, and we're going to make a video, and then we're going to talk to you guys about it. Inevitably, there's hype that's going to come along with that. Inevitably, hype is so powerful within gaming. It's so powerful. Like, the thing that I've noticed is that I've called it the rule of three. I talked about it with Tate just last week. It's like, you call it, it's hype, grind, bitch. Like, it's like, that is the mindset. If you look at, you're going to divide content creation traditionally in those things, and hype is something that, like, you can't help it. Like, there's a communal aspect to it, right?
Oh, definitely.
Like, if you separating yourself from Animal Crossing to go and experience it in just a pure sense is really beautiful, but at the same time, there's plenty of people who want to talk about it, who want to get excited about it.
Totally. One of my best friend has been just going absolutely nuts over it.
Yeah.
Like, she can't hold herself in. She can't play anything else. Just talking about Animal Crossing, that she's just making memes all over the place. But like, I understand that. I think it's more like less the content creator hype and like our you know, the sort of secondhand hype. What I more have a problem with is first party hype.
Oh yeah,
hype that comes from the developers and the publishers and, you know, the companies that come out with this stuff. It's like there's no sense of holding back anything anymore. It's like the marketing team just like, oh, we just kicked this out the door, and development team's like, what? We haven't completely QA'd this yet. Oh, there's the tweet. Damn it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it makes the game look bad because the promises that are coming out, you know, it's like the fact that people called that Fourth Horseman quest, like they just used the word time gate when it was never meant to because it was a bug.
Mhm.
But people were like, oh, well, this isn't.
Another real
broken.
example
It's
is with
broken again.
Chris. I'm gonna use Chris as an example real quick. Chris, another real good example of this is with Halo 5. Chris has had an incredible experience with Halo 5. He was just like you, cut
I
off.
love it.
And when you go look at the marketing, when you go look at like the podcast, like I was in, like I'm like, man, this story is epic, narrative, Locke versus Chief, what's going on, da da da. And it's like, well, the marketing like led up, and then the game was just like it was a fine game, but it's like from what everything looked like it was going, the story did not match to the level of marketing that was out there, and the marketing team did an incredible job, and it hurt the game from a story. The multiplayer, everybody praises it. The story was like everything you know. It was like, hey, we had all these prequels, and they're better than the daggum book. You know, they're better than the movie that was released. But so here I am going like, yeah, it really didn't land. And Chris was like, what are you talking about? Like, that was awesome. I had a great time with it. It's like, oh, he did what you did with Animal Crossing. Oh, the game's here? Great.
Yeah. It's.
And I have continued to adore that game since. I played it last night. It has been one of the best purchases I have made for the Xbox One generation. It's phenomenal. And the fact that it's run this long, I mean, time and time again, I hear people say like, oh, Halo's not the best shooter ever. They lose out to COD. And it's like, you're comparing a 6-year-old game to a game that gets updated annually. Like if it's beating COD needs to learn. Like it should be nowhere close to COD in sales numbers, in interest on places like Twitch. It should be nowhere close. If you're like, yeah, I don't know, like this guy that doesn't even qualify to compete is winning. It's like, well, then what does that say about the competitors? Obviously the field needs to step it up.
It's weird though, because like you see these in mainly, you know, multiplayer games, but if I were to come out and say, man, you know, the Tales of series just wipes the floor it just wipes FF all over the floor. It's like, you know, like, oh, you know, 15 and Arise coming out soon. It's like the comparisons the sort of direct comparisons that are made between like Halo is fundamentally different. Yeah. Like the whole when Borderlands came out, Borderlands 3, we were like, oh my god, you know, this is better than Destiny. And I'm like, huh? Or the people that would come in and be like, Warframe is better than Destiny. I'm like, what?
I want to jump in on
what? Based on what?
I want to talk
the fact
about
that they're looter shooters, maybe ish, kind of.
My issue when I looked at Borderlands 3, and I said, like, I was like, guys, like everything I'm seeing, like, yeah, I like Borderlands, but I said I think they built the wrong game. Like, oh, it's a great looter shooter, and I go, yeah, in a month, no one's gonna be playing it, and that's like exactly what happened. Like the numbers just tanked on it. I think it should be back now because now that it's on Steam, and I'm gonna be curious to see how that game overall exists. But when you look at it was like this is a timepiece of like 2011 2012. It's driven based off of like, oh, remember when looter shooters didn't make you have to do all this other stuff. And then I was like looking at it and I go, and then everybody's going to go back to Destiny, and then everybody's going to go back and play that game that they say they hate. You know, they like, oh, I'm glad that Borderlands isn't doing all this weekly and seasonal, you know, kind of stuff. And then you stop playing the game. You know, it's like, and that's where I was looking at it. I was like, I felt disingenuous that for all these people were like, yeah, Borderlands, just like the hype machine. And then I was like, and then they were like, yeah, I'm going to play Borderlands for a week and then I'm going to go do something else. And it's like, I'm glad that, I was like, it boggled my mind. For me, it said that I'm glad they made a nostalgic game. But I think that it's like they weren't paying attention to what the market actually is wanting. An individual and a small group of people really probably dived in, but it's like, is it Borderlands 2.5? And so for me, when I looked at my just like my life, and I was like, I just don't want to, because I really enjoyed Borderlands 2. I was like, I don't want to sit here and just touch this game and then move on and forget about it. I'm going to wait. I guess I'll wait till the Game of the Year edition comes out and I actually have time where I can sit down and play, so I can really just enjoy Borderlands 3 for what it is. And so that's the decision I ended up making. And I was like, yeah. And the one thing I did was like, it was interesting because hype is so powerful. Everybody, like, you kind of like, your brain can kind of turn off and say this is going to be the best thing since sliced bread, and anybody who disagrees with me doesn't understand, like, they don't get it, and then you go look back in retrospect.
Not have hype.
Well, you can't, like, but
You can't cut it out. I know you guys are saying that, like, just before, like, even the impression that, like, it would be better if there was, like, little to no marketing. Indie developers do little to no marketing, and they don't sell the number of copies as AAA games. And it is more than possible that there is an indie game out there that is a better fit for you than a AAA game when you have a set of expectations, but you've never heard of it because they didn't do any marketing. So, like, marketing is a necessary thing to rise you to the top of the huge stack of games that come out every year. And AAA studios do it.
It's the way they market. It's like these people that are coming out.
Gray area.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, just using marketing as a word, huge. Great. We could talk about, you know, games that have done amazing with marketing, games that have done absolutely terrible, like, you know, nauseatingly so with marketing.
And only in R3 lenses. Somebody else thought it was fine.
Yeah.
There are people that like No Man's Sky on launch.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And most of No Man's Sky was a hype train that got... Sony just didn't do anything to correct it. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like Male Vieira in 14. And it should be Yoshi P's job to correct that, because otherwise what we could do is say, so next time we're getting 3 new jobs, right? And if he doesn't say no, he's wrong. And so we can just hold him hostage, and I can just literally guess things until I get it right, because he has to correct me every time I get it wrong.
Every time he doesn't have a straight answer, that's about 1,000 YouTube videos that are born.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like, what did he mean?
800 of them on Works a Game.
Right here.
I love Chris's last video, just talking about, like, you know, everybody's like, flying's coming in 5.3. And Chris is like, maybe, like, don't sit here and...
I can't say it's not.
Yeah.
I can't prove that. It's hard to prove a negative.
Well, it's just that also that it could, but people, if flying doesn't happen in 5.3, there are people who actively believe that is coming, and then are actively going to go on a rant and say, I can't believe that they canceled or delayed it. This is ridiculous. And it's so funny because... Go ahead.
Evidence ever of it coming out except in my own brain, so I set myself up for this, but I am still angry and not blaming myself because they should have done it because I thought of it anyway.
Well, and it's like it's inevitable. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I know. It's like all this stuff. Yeah, we could be talking about this stuff, like, you know, you're talking about the Xbots versus the
ponies.
PlayStation ponies. I'm like, am I back in high school?
Yeah, it feels like
I graduated high school in 2001. You know, so it's like, am I like it's just the same thing, different generation.
Like, I'm fine with having a preferred place to play. Like, I love the Xbox controllers. Like, that's like something that's really comfortable. I would love to see more cross controls. Right.
And Xbox Live is one of the greatest social experiences you can have. It just works.
And my concern, though, it always comes down into is that people fight over these numbers like they own stock in these companies. And if they own stock in these companies, I'm sure they wouldn't care, because they're like, I'm making money. Like, it's like, please go buy my, you know, this product, because that's going to help me retire at some point. My concern with hype...
I'm happy Xbox doing well.
Oh, yeah. Like, I think that's the best thing about the competition between all of them, is that it raises the bar for everybody. Sony competing, trying to compete maybe in a different way than the Xbox. Xbox learning from their incredible marketing flubs back in 2013 to sit here and say, like, here's what we're going to do. And so my Xbox is in the news every month. Like, there isn't a month since, especially the reveal of the Series X, but even prior to that, they were doing mixer numbers. Like, Ninja's here now, and then, you know, Shroud's here now, like, boom, 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 boom. So there's so many, like it's all, they're always constantly trying to make sure that people remember them from a gaming perspective in all different kinds of ways. I think my main concern, like, that I bring it up to hype, because it's the hype from the hype to hype. Like, it's this, like, I'm going to be happy when I can finally play Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing comes out. Oh, it turns out I'm not happy. Now I'm going to be hyped about this next thing that's off in the future. And it's just, you're constantly chasing kind of that high. You're always kind of looking for that next big thing, and sometimes it hits, right? And when it does, it's like there's a big gaming cultural phenomenon that happens around it, and we've seen it a handful of times. I think the original Halo was one of those. I think when you look at like Call of Duty, like a release in which that it's just like just in the main sales numbers, like when all of a sudden you look around and people are like, hey, what is this thing called Twitch? Like, why are people streaming it? Like, back when PS4 and Xbox 1 launched, like how many people were actively watching Twitch? Like what, overall complete 200,000?
A fraction of what we have now.
And now it's just like it's blown up in scale. And so there are these really interesting cultural moments that do happen, but they don't happen every month. And that's where, when I look at, these hype trains that could be driven by marketing campaigns, maliciously or just legit, like we're really proud of this product. My always concern is like, what is my role in that? Do I bring a sense of balance, or do I help to set? And I'm always very like critical of myself within social media. I've been that way for a long time. Chris is too. It's like we're like, what are we bringing to the conversation? And the thing that it's always kind of like enlightening about about it all. And when you go look at our comments, it's always very easy to see who actually watches the content versus who doesn't, because nobody cares for the rational man in the social media. So like people do, like an individual can, but in general, like I can sit here and say like, here's what's good about it, here's what's bad about it, and people are going to say like, unless you're one of the two extremes, this is the best thing ever or this is the worst thing ever. It's really hard to grow with that rational mindset of, let's actually think about this rationally, guys. Let's talk about it in what this could mean. And nobody else is more victim of it than Chris. It's like, I hate Chris because he's like, oh God, what was it? You're adequate, or what was the thing you're shooting for now?
Yesterday I was told I was extremely adequate.
You're extremely adequate.
Yeah, couldn't have said it more adequately, I believe. I mean, so the other thing is you have to question, what is the role of titles? So like it moves into that clickbait conversation, but like yesterday we all labeled our streams before we knew what the PS5 event was. And so you can't go back and say, I did a good job labeling this, or I did a bad job labeling this, because I knew, because we didn't know. So we all took a guess, and the number of videos uploaded as streams before or as immediate reaction videos with the word reveal in it, that ours had reveal in it. That word is not an accurate description of what we got. And so that word kind of sets the tone. And so when somebody clicks PS5 and sees 55 videos that all say reveal, they're like, oh my gosh, PS5 is out. I can Google pictures. It's really a thing. And then they're going to be like, we set them up for that failure. And they're like, wow, I can't believe Sony hasn't revealed it. Not a single one of those videos from PlayStation said the word reveal. Those were all from creators outside of PlayStation's control, like us. And so like now PlayStation is considered the jerk in the room for not revealing. And it's like, I said that if you're on our podcast today, Brian would mail you a cake. And I told you that. And so now you're mad at Brian that you didn't get your cake, but like that was never from him. Like he never said that. And it's like, and then I find 40 other people to also tell you, how are you liking Brian's cake? And then you're like, what cake?
Never got the cake.
So like, that's really the issue here, is that part of the hype is
celiac,
us.
so I can't even eat cake.
part of the hype is us. It's
No,
the community that makes the content that is not governed by the devs. We're a huge part of that problem. Now, the other side of that is sometimes I pick something like ARR Flying as a title, and I pick it intentionally. And that is because I want the people who believe ARR is going to be flying that Google it to find my video so that I can correct them. And if you actually watch the video, it starts out from the very beginning saying, like, we need to talk about expectations. Like, it's immediately like, yeah, you just stepped into this room. Let's get lectured. Like,
so for the last part
Time
of
to learn.
so for the last part of the podcast, I do want to get your thoughts about obviously Shadowbringers. We're in 5.2.1 now, barreling towards 5.3. It seems that the story in and of itself is firing for me on all cylinders. I'm going to put out a spoiler warning so that way we can feel free if we want to talk about it. I don't know the future, so I don't know if we'll end up, if we'll be vague or not. But just if you haven't finished the story of 5.2, you might want to just, come back later, and we wish you well. If you got this far and you're bouncing out, tell us what kind of cake you like in the comments of this video below. We'd love to know what your favorite flavor of cake is. 5.2, obviously, like, we're going to go into 5.3, and this is the back half of 14. As somebody who was active in both 14 and within Destiny 2, I think you tweeted it out, or at least you responded to a tweet in which that you're talking about how Destiny and 14 players, there is this weird synergy that you see a lot of crossover.
We all play the same,
yeah.
Yep.
We like it, and it's not just like you and me. It's not just Chris. It's like, like even Fusion X from Gamerscape. Like, a lot of people, end up playing both of these games, and they're very different games. But there's also a lot of similar, a lot of threads, between the two. But like, what's your read on Final Fantasy XIV? How are you feeling now? Because people kind of go through an emotional journey during, especially long gaps, and like content that maybe speaks to them, like story or more dungeons, things like that.
Yeah, I think that they're finally in a place where they're playing around. I feel like I've said this, but I've seen it coming with like just the way, I used to focus on UI design. So it's like just seeing how they're having fun. Like when they started coming out with like the crafting tree and crafting recipes, I'm like, okay, guys, we're coming up with new stuff now rather than having to fix. That's like saying goodbye to technical debt. Let's have some fun now. Story wise, I actually thought they would have moved faster, because you had the whole thing at the last piece with, like, you saw the big star falling, and that just turned to be out to be Ruby weapon, being the switch after Ruby weapon. So that trailer kind of got me hyped for moving through the story fast, but it kind of moved slower than I thought it would. So it kind of follows because my thing was like 5.3 is the changeover. That's when you close the story of Shadowbringers and start to open the story of 6.0. And like, that's where the big like mid patch trial is going to be. So I'm like, that they're doing a really good job of just throwing all these things at us. But obviously, we're coming out with more questions. And 6 months or 3 months is just too long to wait. So I guess it's nice to have Ishgard, which I love. I freaking love the fact that we're finally getting into the meat of the Ishgard restoration, like sweeping up the coal, and then actually paving the Matic with, and just seeing that, I just sat back in my couch. And I'm like, this feels really good.
I love that how it brings people together.
I just did a thing where I pressed X.
Yeah,
I just pressed X a lot. And I feel really good just seeing this come together. And like, we're gonna see the Ishgard, housing system come about, and you feel like, yeah, I
built that. Yeah.
It makes me want to buy a house for the first time.
Yeah, I mean,
I have not wanted to buy a house up until now because I haven't wanted to put the pressure. There are times that this game hits a lull for me, and I want to go play something else, and I don't keep track of the number of days I'm gone. And I know it's a while because when I log back in, it's like you get a returner symbol. But I never unsubscribed. I just took a break long enough to cross the threshold. And I take these breaks. It happened at least once during Stormblood, where I took a break long enough to get a returner symbol, because it just like, I can look back at the gap in my guides on the channel, and I was playing something else.
Somebody was asking about Fisher Guide number 3.
I hope they know that if I do a new series, so I was thinking about refreshing a new series. If it's a 7-part series, it's going to be 1 through 7 of 8.
Trolling. Where's
that's
number?
Great. I should do that.
Just to mess with them.
This is part 1 of 2. Where's 2?
Like, where's
what?
2? Where's
3
2?
years later. Where's 2?
Is 2 coming?
Yeah. The most recent comment was, I can't believe I just watched 30 minutes of this to not get the final part.
Yeah.
It's like, you still learn things.
Yeah, it's the journey, not the end.
It's not like the first is like, well, none of this information applies. It's not like I left open-ended questions. It was an intro and intermediate, and then I just never made an advanced. It just never made it. And it's because I never got enough of the like mythological fish or whatever they're called to feel like I had enough of a pattern. So I left myself room for the guide, and then I never got enough of it done and I still don't.
The
a couple of those fishing quests that get ridiculous.
I'm really have been enjoying seeing people compete in crafting and gathering in terms of kind of the Ishgardian restoration, and that's what I've long that's why I was like I love Ishgardian restoration. It feels so much more of an MMO in terms of its
Yeah.
content, right? Like everybody's
Yeah.
both working together, but this level means that we're all working together. But there's also this level of competition that isn't direct PvP, but it's PvP. Like PvP in my mind has always existed on many fronts. Final Fantasy XI had it through PvE. Like you were competing for control of zones, and those zones helped feed your economy and it allowed you to like. And it was always, but it was passive. It was always just like, yep, this is what's happening. And if you chose to, you could engage in it even more. And when they were doing that, I was really excited because I've seen people say like, I'm gonna get in the top 12. And they would work, and then they're like, "All right, I finished at 4, but I fell back on the gathering because I was really like, because other people also want to do this, and it just for me was like, this is really cool because the other side of it, what we've seen as the counter arguments to Ishgardian restoration and to these kind of systems within Final Fantasy, and it's based off how it's built, conceptually by design. Is that people say I have a right to everything in this game. I have a right to experience everything of every piece of content. And that's because the theme park and the story sets it up. You have a right to experience the story. This is what's
the Warrior of Light.
Right.
You get everything.
Right.
And then
as opposed to just being Brian.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it shifts and it has content that says you have the right to choose to engage with this or not. But we're not going to guarantee you rewards. These things are going to be locked around to people who are going to do this. And for some people, and even in Destiny, I see this from some people in the community saying like, this should be here for everybody. Because I can't do this at a streamer level, like I feel cut off from this. And that's something where when I looked at, and I was telling you in the pre-show, like after Undying, I logged in once or twice to Dawn. Once Gabriel was born, I was like, yes, Dawn here. I'm gonna hit my level 100 cap as quickly as possible. And he was born, and then I logged in, and then I was like, and that was it. And I was just like, okay, I'm just not gonna just engage with this. I can't. And then with Worthy, like I was just, oh yeah, I'm running at it. And I'm wondering if the next season I'm just gonna be exhausted because you run at something so hard and you end up pulling back. But anyway, that's in and of itself. I see that same kind of concept within it. Like, do people have a right within an MMO, especially with the subscription MMO? Should they design content that that fits everybody?
You don't even have that right in a theme park.
No, you must be.
You purchase a day's ticket to get in.
Yeah.
There are things inside that theme park that cost additional money. There are things inside that theme park that require you a certain height. There are things inside that theme park that are going to have lines long enough that if you tried to ride every ride, there is not time before you get kicked out at the end of the day and you must pay to come back tomorrow. This is a game where you are paying an entry fee every month after an initial account creation fee once every 2 years to buy the expansion. And once you have an up-to-date expansion, you may pay for however many months you want to have access to the theme park. You do not have to ride all of the rides. You do not get to ride all of the rides. Enjoy what you can. Have a great time. That's it. That's all it is. It is 100% a theme park.
Yep. That is probably the best. Taking it as literal as that. I can't come up with anything better than that.
Adequate.
It's adequate. That is exceptionally adequate for an explanation to all of this. Yeah, I completely agree. It gets me all the time with Destiny, and I guess that's those kind of similarities when it comes to entitlement and what I deserve to get. It's that you got to put the work in, right? Not everything can be given to you, and it's really interesting because like whenever you bring up the crafting the crafting feast is what I call it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just
the crafting feast.
I was just cackling, that during that entire review through the thing because I know there are a lot of people out there that wanted end game content for crafters. I'm like, you know what you get? You get the feast, you get relics, you get everything else. You are on parity with PvE now. You can't play it anymore. Because you get all of those things and everybody was like, oh my God. And I was just sort of laughing. I was laughing like a witch.
Yeah, Chris was so excited because he's like,
because
crafting relics.
Crafting relics, man.
Crafting relics.
I threw it out as a troll at first because my first suggestion was they should do crafting relics and not battle relics and just watch the community explode. And then they said crafting relics. I was like, that works. So WoW has a system called Tools of the Trade.
Mm.
And Tools of the Trade basically unlocks when you are a level capped character. So all your alts have to go hit cap. A level capped character that is past a certain level within that profession is given basically a quest chain, and you go off and you perform this quest chain. And when I first tried to unlock it, I was like, awesome, I'm going to do the quest chain. I'm good at quests. I can fetch things. And so I go off and I fetch things and I do all the stuff it asks of me. It's like, hey, craft this thing. No problem. Hey, go talk to this guy. No problem. Hey, go kill this thing and bring me back its liver. Got it. And then I get to the end and they said, cool, you've unlocked the recipe for your equivalent of like a WoW crafting relic. And then the recipe is like all these expensive materials. So you get to the end and they're like, great, you've unlocked it. Oh yeah, the tool's real expensive. So like, it's like, oh yeah, that's 100 million gil. Is that going to be a problem? And I was like, what? Like I spent like 2 hours doing this whole quest chain and I didn't Google it because I was like, I want to enjoy this. And I got to the end and I was like, I can't even make it.
I can't make the thing.
My working theory, and Brian, I'd like to know your thoughts and your reaction to it. My working theory is that there's a categorization of gamer who thinks that they like MMOs. And it's that in that thought, like, oh, I really like MMOs. And I see it time and time again where they're like, oh, they got me again. Like, just like what Chris said, like all of a sudden you're like, what do you mean I have to have this insane grind? And it's like, what kind of game did you think you were playing? You know, and that's where I think it comes in with 14 handling content in different ways. But do you ever run into that kind of mentality where it's like, I always just thought like, somebody believes that they actually like these kind of games, but then all I see from them time and time again is just how much they hate it. And then yet they keep playing. And it's like, oh man, like, how do I help this guy? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm glad, I'm proud. My CM is in the chat right now. Like that we have a community where we don't have a lot of those people. So I like, it's mostly as a third party observer of that type of behavior.
It creeps up on you.
Huh?
I said it creeps up on you though.
Well, it does.
Like you wake up one day and I like this. I'm going to like that. Like I love potatoes and I love pasta. And then I don't like gnocchi.
Gnocchi sucks, dude.
And like the first time my sister-in-law she makes her own gnocchi and she's like, I'm going to make this gnocchi for you. And I was like, what is it? And she's like, oh, it's potato pasta. And I was like, this is amazing. And like all day I could smell everything in the kitchen being made. I was so excited and I was getting hungry and I was trying not to snack. She gives me this big old bowl and we're so excited. And I take one bite. I was like, I'm so bummed. Like, why do I not like this?
Yeah, Julie loves gnocchi. And so she made it for me. And she explained it that same way. She's like, it's potatoes and it's pasta. And I was like, sold. I love potatoes and I love pasta. You know, I'm Italian and I'm Irish. This is fantastic. And then it literally was just like, this is disgusting. Oh man.
But I think the important thing there is that, yeah, you had your expectation coming in. The expectation wasn't meant, but did you learn from that experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I've never ordered it since. I'm not continuing to sign a subscription up to log in and eat gnocchi.
Exactly. That's the thing where these people are like, oh, I have to do PvP for the weapon, but it's that collector's mentality.
Yeah.
I must have every pinnacle. I must have every ritual weapon. I must have every relic. It's like
that goes away with age. A younger me had to have everything that people said I could do, or said I couldn't do, and I thought I could do. I had to do to prove something, and then at some point, I just asked, why though? They're like, you can't do that. And it's like, I think I can. And they're like, but you can't, but I don't want to. And they're like, but you can't. And I was like, I don't care. Like, that's the end of that conversation. Like, fine then. I can't.
Yeah,
like,
fine.
I don't
just believe that.
You live in your reality. I'll live in mine. We're not hurting each other. Like, knock yourself out.
Brian, you said something that was so true to what I see is that no matter what, whenever I like talk about Destiny, there's always one comment saying, do I still need to do PvP to experience, to collect this weapon or whatever? And the answer is yes. Like the game will bring you in and, I've got tons of quests that I have yet to complete, but I've always just kind of played it at my own pace and for my own enjoyment. So that's interesting because it's like, yeah, it's the collector mindset. Like if in them, they have to get everything, and Destiny itself doesn't even provide enough vault space in my mind to get.
Oh God, vault space. Yeah, they need to double that at least. But I mean, the really cool thing about, I guess, just going back to Destiny in there is like I've had community members who are not very big on PvP, but they got their savior seal last season, and they were freaking proud of that, and I was freaking proud of them for that, because they were there. The 90% of the things that they wanted to do, 10% of the things they didn't want to do, but they did come out with a better respect of those activities. Like, if anything, the people that have gone through PvP and sort of learned their nuances around it, or which modes to play, were able to have a more of a respect for it, that all of a sudden it feels now worth it to get. It doesn't feel like a stress. It feels like a win to get that seal at the end. And being okay with not being able to get every seal. I want every seal because I am still a collector, and I will throw myself at these things. I threw myself at trials for the very first time last week, and like Friday was a crap show. Saturday was great, and I'm looking forward to it, tomorrow and this coming weekend. Like, I want to get better at it.
Yeah, I just hit 960.
Self-betterment thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, yes, I can finally do trials.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to. It took me until Sunday to hit it, and I was like, by the time I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna wait till next week and get my squad and go into trials, and hopefully have a good time, because I just love PvP in Destiny. It just is done so well.
I think trials is a great argument for that. It's like, you can't fudge your way through trials.
Right.
And some people were like having a problem with the fact that some trials things were on the Eververse. So some people could get trials branded stuff, but then there were people that should be reserved for flawless wins. So you have that kind of reverse thing that's like, wait, people don't deserve that because people that get flawless should do that. The people that are good should do that, because there's a respect for the content.
Yeah.
There's a respect for trials that has evolved since D1. That, like, if you want anything from trials, you got to work for it, not pay money.
Right.
So, Bungie tried to kind of put that in half by like, okay, ghost projection. Okay. Ornament for Outbreak perfected. Okay. But then people were still,
there's an ornament now for Outbreak perfected.
It's a trials.
Bye guys, gotta work. Ornament. I gotta get it on this, because I love my Outbreak
silver
perfected.
For that?
No. Has it been an hour? I gotta take off.
Yeah,
I think
it's like, well, look at the time, boys.
There you go.
I was like, I love that gun. That's my favorite gun. So on that note, though, man, it's just so much fun. I've always last question for you, and then we'll wrap up. What are your thoughts if Destiny decided to ever put in an optional subscription fee? Phantasy Star Online 2 just launched here in open beta, and they have an optional subscription. And it has additional rewards, but pretty much you can play the whole game for free. Destiny is actually now a free to start game as well. And I've always kind of wished that, because I just don't see myself going and buying silver and purchasing it. I buy the expansion and I buy the season pass. That's my in. But I've always kind of sit here and thought, like, man, like, I would probably do an optional sub if it had some kind of rewards to it. Because that, like, instead of like randomly spending silver, if it was X a month, or like, here's this. What are your thoughts on that? Should Destiny look at different monetization strategies? Because
I think a lot of my quintessential example was that Twitter would be so much better if they were freemium, because you could pay to not see ads, and I would do that. I've said in the past that on another podcast that I would sacrifice some of my cut each month if people didn't have to see ads. So that's like the big quintessential like argument I have for that stuff. Having that optional, giving me ways to give you money is great. And I mean, I support the game anyway. I buy a lot of the Eververse stuff every month. I buy all of the finishers and whatever, but I would love to be able to feel like I am contributing on a monthly basis, not just in view hours for my community and play hours, but also in like just thanking the devs. And that's what I've always felt with 14. It's like, yeah, it's a subscription, but I've been subscribed for it says 1,800 days. So like, that's a lot of months of paying them, but I feel like I've gotten what I've paid for and more. Like, I would probably, it's probably worth double the what I put into it. You're getting that much out of it. And, I make that argument for like the seasons. It's like, yeah, it's $10 a season, but you're paying $10 for a Destiny season for 3 months of content that you're paying $45
right
for 3 months content.
So you'd
So
say
it's
like the seasons are acting kind of in that way as the
they are acting kind of in that way, but I would love to see them give the option to better fund them so they can do things, they can do more things that what we're expecting out of them, because I think we are kind of feeling that little tightening of
the wallet.
The wallet, because of the being cut off from Activision. Like, they don't have the number of devs that they did. Luke Smith talked about that in the last developer letter. Like, you got to understand that just because it's like crab dance Activision's dead is not necessarily all good, because they have to make these transitions to
That's why
being
Blizzard
able-
partnered with them in the first place.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Blizzard
Right?
was fine. They just needed more money.
Yeah.
They literally just wanted a bigger checkbook.
Yep.
Right.
So
Go ahead.
exactly. I mean, so you have this sense of, we're seeing they want to push a very big dream, and it's going to take them time to do. But if they had more funding to do it, that wasn't based off of like, the I guess the MMO paradigm of just, buying cosmetics. If I could just pay them, just like, let me just give you money for your time.
I just always
I would
I
love to do
wonder
that.
I wonder as like more kind of subscription game services come out, if we don't see more of these kind of persistent games also have some kind of benefit. And I know Phantasy Star Online 2 does with Game Pass. Like, it's like, hey, we've got this additional thing that if you have this is also going to benefit you in that way, because I think fundamentally the subscription per game like model is ultimately rejected. People like, I like it because there's pros and cons, but but I think when you look at overall gaming, like Fortnite is a free to play game, but yet it is one of the most revenue producing games out there on the market today. So gamers,
of course,
gamers say like, this is what market decides what wins and what doesn't. And so I've always kind of been curious to see if like, that's what I was like, I've always thought the optional subscription would be good, but I was wondering if they don't do something like that at some point, if you don't see them partner up with like PlayStation and Xbox to say like, hey, if you're, or heck, even if there's some games, good old games, or things like that, where it's like, hey, we're going to be a part of this. We saw the promo with Twitch with Twitch Prime recently for Destiny, so it's like more of kind of like different integrations end up being kind of a way to help fund it, because like I want the game to last, and the complaints that I see people making is that they're not making the game fast enough. They're not making the content, and that's the same. It's in like how we said, back to finishing it all up. 14 and Destiny, same complaints I see people leverage at 14 in the comments. They're like, they haven't made content that I want as a part of my sub, and it's like, and that's why Yoshi P says, take a break, go play something else. It's like,
for now.
Yeah, exactly. Just pause your sub, just go play something else. And you come back, and then all of a sudden there's maybe a bunch of content for you to experience. Brian, where can people find you? What you got coming up? Like, floor is yours.
Oh yeah, twitch.tv/AvalonStar. This is Avalon Star's 20th year as a thing. I bought AvalonStar.com way back in 2000, so we're kind of celebrating bringing everything together. Been working on personal websites again, which has been great, and
Nice.
kind of solidifying a lot of the foundation to take Avalon Star into the future. Game wise, oh god, it's a lot. Balancing FF14, Destiny 2, Monster Hunter. I'll be starting. I'm playing Doom and Doom Eternal. We'll be playing Doom Eternal when it comes out.
Cool.
Obviously, the 7 remake. Animal Crossing. I'll be playing for the first time, and I mean, we just kind of go with it as. I felt really good talking. You were talking about anxiety and things like that. I've been trying to minimize that in my own career as the months have gone on, and it just works that I have a community that just rolls with the punches with me. Like, I never really have any specific plans. Oh yeah, Persona 5. Which I haven't played before. I have a community that rolls with the punches with me, and like, if I feel like playing something else, they're like, yeah, you do you, because we like seeing you having fun, and I've accepted that, and it's just made things better. So if you'd like to become part of that, twitch.tv/AvalonStar. And we'd love to have you as part of the Crusaders.
Chris, what's going on with you? What's going on with us? What we got coming up?
We have a Rex gaming podcast next week. Is that correct?
Is he next week?
I think so.
What month is
that
it?
crept up on us.
Oh, really fast. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I was sitting here thinking, well, I don't know why I'm thinking.
You'll know when we know. Yeah, I've been playing a ton of Wolcen. That's a game that they've been fixing bugs regularly, and there are still bugs, but they're doing a great job of making the game more and more stable. So if you're on the fence about that one and you have the hardware to run it, I encourage that. If you don't have the hardware to run it and you really want in, just remember that places like Shadow PC, link down below, will do it. NVIDIA GeForce Now will run it, which since it doesn't need mods or anything, and you can do a free trial there. Lots of options on ways to get in on that. And then I am finally getting all the stuff done around the house, because all of a sudden I'm here a lot. So I am looking forward to spending some more time in 14 and more time in games in general.
Yeah, Julie's got me scheduled to work on the garage and getting things down to the attic. So it's like, all right, yeah, perfect time. Everybody's home.
My commute is almost zero. I can get out of bed and I can walk from that room right there into this room right here, and then I'm at work.
Welcome to the dream.
So yeah, I will say I'm tired of this chair. Like, I've been sitting in this chair 8 to 9 hours a day, and it's like,
not
because when I'm done,
I like my secret lab.
No, I just don't want to be in one place that long.
Yeah.
So like last night, my brother wanted to play Wilson, and I was like, but can we play Halo so I can go sit in that chair? Like, I just want to sit in a different I just want to sit in a different chair.
Yeah. So with that, guys, thanks for tuning in. I've been playing like Warhammer Online. I'm looking forward to New World next month. So lots of really cool stuff coming up. But anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out in the stream. Thanks for everybody watching this on YouTube. And again, you can find us on YouTube, Mixer, I don't know where the hell we are, iTunes, like wherever podcasts are consumed. That's where you can find us. Leave us a like. Let us know if you made it to the end of this video, as opposed to skipping out of the previous talk. Let us know if cake or pie is your favorite. So you can send off in the comments below, letting us know. That will tell us you made it all the way to the end of this podcast. But for Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris. We'll wait.
Oh. My name is also Brian.
You've been here before.
It's been so long.
I didn't know I was part of the ending. I thought like you guys were just signing off as your normal thing.
That's why it's like when there's long periods of time, people are like, oh wait, I forgot.
When we get to number 100, we should edit all of those together and post it as its own post. Just outros to see.
I love it. Thanks, Brian. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hopefully you all have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time. Take care.